along with my troublemaking partner, Andrea Gomez,
Yeah.
as we always are on Facebook Live here, Texas Latino Conservatives. We have a very busy program for you, and we want to try to expose you and share as many candidates as possible with you so that you can make an informed decision. We had a record turnout yesterday. I think Harris County was
128,000 people went to
we
y buenos días a todos, porque es que nunca... Bueno, 128,000 personas votaron el día de ayer, el primer día de las votaciones anticipadas, un día histórico, de verdad. Bienvenidos a TLC Live, como siempre, y como dijo Orlando, vamos a tener un programa súper ocupado, 3 invitados de lujo que nos están acompañando hoy, y el factor sorpresa es Chris Daniels el día de hoy.
So welcome, Chris Daniel. Yeah, our surprise guest who really wasn't scheduled, but he insisted he wanted to share a little time with you guys. So Chris Daniel is our candidate for tax assessor collector here in Harris County. I will tell you that Chris was my colleague on the at Harris County. You were the district clerk.
Correct.
You did a fantastic job. Now you've switched. You're running for tax assessor collector because there's issues that you're concerned about. So tell the voters what are those issues and tell them how you want them to vote.
Well, for the last 4 years, an office that was running perfectly under Paul Betancourt, under Don Somners, under Leo Vasquez, under Mike Sullivan, has suddenly gone into shambles simply for political purposes. You have a lady that's in there that has basically gutted the auto department so that unless you're part of her favorite you're not getting the service you deserve. She has forced most of her employees to not easily has not asked for once for any kind of help or dollars or technology support so that her employees can work remotely to make sure that you're getting the services that you deserve from your tax office. We have great state reps like Mike Schofield who have put in the laws in place so that you can get good service from the tax office. And yet here this woman is blatantly incompetent. She ran for office after office after office after office and finally won something because in the process of doing that has basically taken the office back a decade technology-wise. What you deserve is somebody like Orlando Sanchez and myself who put technology into county government, who streamlined the processes, who implemented faster, easier ways of jurors getting paid and faster, easier way of accessing the court system. We're going to implement that same technology into the tax office so it's faster, better, easier for you to handle your property taxes, your auto registration. Your registration should be hold on to that and more. And as your tax assessor collector, I look forward to having the support of the Tejano community, of the Latino community, to make sure that we're serving everybody in Harris County, just like we did together as treasurer and as district clerk.
I don't want to say my friend. I remember Chris Daniel when he was campaigning. You know, one of the things we talk about here at the Texas Latino Conservatives Political Action Committee is the lack of participation, let's say, by traditional Republicans campaigning in the barrios in the Latino community, coming out to quinceañeras or coming out to the KC Hall or Catholic churches all over the East End. This guy is not afraid to campaign in diverse communities of Houston. I've seen him at union halls. I've seen him at the Knights of Columbus. I've seen him at American Legion posts. I've seen him at Republican clubs like the Pachyderms and Cherry Tree Republicans and the Republican women's clubs. But I've also seen him in Manchester in the civic clubs out there. I've seen him all over the city of Houston. So this is a guy that's accessible. He understands our community. He particularly understands the Tejano community. And by the way, he mentioned it, not I. He understands the importance that Tejanos have played in the history of communities around Texas. But Chris, you know, you obviously are very well versed in the history of Tejanos. And one of the things that I talk about to my conservative friends. When I went through elementary school here in Texas, I didn't even know Tejanos and Mexican Americans had actually played a role in the revolution in 1836.
Right.
It wasn't until I was an older fellow that I started learning history, maybe by watching PBS or other documentaries, as they are displaying now during Hispanic Heritage Month, of the role that Latinos, particularly Mexican Americans, played in Texas. And it was interesting to me to learn that the birth of LULAC was because of lack of participation and equality given to Mexican Americans. And in fact, the GI Forum was formed because a World War II Mexican American GI couldn't travel through counties and get medical services here in Texas.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
And it was a Latina, a Tejano Latina, who saved the Alamo.
Yep.
The great granddaughter of the first vice president of the Republic of Texas.
Yeah.
But for her chaining herself to the door and filing a lawsuit, we would not have the Alamo as we know it today. There are many, many important factors, not only to the history of Texas, but the history of music in Texas. And it's something that needs to be preserved, protected, and defended, because at the end of the day, Tejanos are integral to Harris County, to Houston, to Texas, and they need to have their voice and they need to have their music back at the rodeo, by the way.
Oh, yeah. So, Chris, what we can tell our community, now this year has been for sure a crazy year, but also, it's special that this year will come with 3 weeks for early voting. It started yesterday, ends on October 30th. And, this is a privilege. And yesterday it was really a big turnout. And I'm so happy for that. We were seeing lines and lines of people trying to vote and participate. So what we can tell our Latino community that for decades, people say like, we don't vote. But I think this year it's a different story.
Because it's no straight ticket all the way down the ballot, you're going to see the impact of Latino votes, Tejano votes, all the way at the bottom, because now we're talking fractions of a vote being able to separate who's going to win, whether or not Mike Schofield returns to the House, whether or not we have Tony Salas in as a state rep. This is important that people, if you want your vote to be magnified 10x, you need to go all the way down the ballot. And you need to do it early, because with the current tax assessor collector screwing up the poll books, screwing up the voting lines, making, especially in Pasadena and Galena Park and strong Latino areas, you need to make sure that your vote counts by voting early. And when you do, as you go all the way down the ballot, regardless of who you're voting for, your vote is going to be 10x. I hope it's for a conservative. I hope it's for somebody that promotes Latino values, Tejano values. But at the end of the day, your vote will count 10x all the way at the bottom of the ballot.
And some of the polls are open this year even later than the 7 o'clock that is normally every year, right?
Correct. There's at least 4 that I know of, early voting locations that are 24-hour voting locations.
Wow.
There are at least 10 drive-through voting centers. So if you're worried about COVID-19, if you're worried about health and safety, and at the same time also concerned that there may be shenanigans with the mail, there are many, many, many opportunities to vote in person, safely, securely, even in your vehicle, so that you can social distance and yet make sure your vote counts.
So no excuse this year.
No excuse. And I really hope that after the efforts of the Texas Latino PAC here and others, that we're able to drive out the East Side, that we're able to drive out the traditional voters that may or may not be excited about the races that...
Don't upset my North Side friends.
Well, we want to make sure that everybody in Harris County comes out and votes, because again, the importance of these races, you had a fantastic treasurer, a fantastic district clerk, a fantastic state rep in Mike Schofield, who at the end of the day were all flushed out because of straight ticket voting. Not because of not because of who we served or didn't serve, which we served everybody. It was simply because somebody pushed a button at the top that then canceled everybody out at the bottom. This time, your vote's going to count 10x because of the fact that there is no straight ticket voting. There will be lazy voters. There will be people that only vote for president. And at the end of the day, when you go all the way down and you make sure you vote for great office holders, you're going to get the best service and the best bang for the buck.
Vamos a votar por Chris Daniels.
That's right. And yeah, what did you say?
Vamos a votar.
Vamos a votar. We're going
¿Qué
to vote
dices
for
tú
Chris
en
Daniels.
español, Chris? Vamos
Vamos
a votar
a votar
por Chris
por Chris
Daniels.
There you go. So you've heard from our great candidate for tax assessor collector of Harris County. And by the way, this is going to be the position that maintains the voter rolls, right? He is the person that will be registering voters. He will be the person that's scrubbing the voter rolls to make sure that those that have passed away in our community are no longer on the voter rolls and receive ballots by mail so that someone can scoop them up out of their mailbox and vote for them and mail them in. He will make sure that our voter rolls are up to date. He will make sure that everyone that is eligible and wants to vote gets to vote. We as conservatives in this state, we want 100% participation. If we get 100% participation in Harris County, we will be excited. I mean, we're not against people voting.
Not at all.
We want people to vote, but we want their vote to count.
Safe,
we want
secure.
your vote to count. I mean, we don't want your vote canceled out by somebody that's voting that shouldn't be voting. So Chris will make sure that happens. Chris, thanks for stopping by.
Happy to be here. Honored to support Tony Salas and Mike Schofield as well.
Who are coming up next. And just make sure Chris is at the very bottom of the ballot. So go all the way down and make sure you hit Chris Daniel. Okay. So Chris, good luck. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, sir.
And we have Michael Schofield, House District candidate for 132, coming up in just a minute.
So ahí estamos viendo la página de internet de Mike, así que ustedes pueden comenzar a ingresar a su página de internet, tratar de conocerlo. Es súper importante hacer nuestra tarea como votantes, porque si no estamos informados, pues es muy difícil que podamos hacer o ejercer nuestro voto de una manera cívica, pues de una manera responsable. Es bien importante y estamos poniendo la página de internet de Mike. Nunca puedo pronunciar su nombre.
Schofield.
Schofield.
Y yo lo digo así porque Michael Schofield es fanático del béisbol y ahora claro que tenemos los Astros, posiblemente ir a la Serie Mundial otra vez. Yo siempre digo que Michael Schofield, yo lo anuncio como un pelotero, ¿no? Right fielder, number 9, Michael Schofield.
Okay.
We're talking about you're a big fan of baseball and the Houston Astros, right?
Very big fan.
Yeah. And
of course,
so
my favorite broadcaster broadcast in Spanish for the Astros in the early days.
Yeah, the old guy by the name of Orlando, right?
How are you, Mike?
I am well. How are you doing?
Well, good. You know, finally, the way when I came to this country, I'm an immigrant from Colombia. So when I came to this country, I didn't know any English. I still learning, and he correct me a lot. So my technique, it was to relate things, that way I was learning English. So now it was a perfect example for me to be able to pronounce his last name.
So can you get it?
Schofield.
Excellent.
Perfect.
Because field, I know that word,
right.
Schofield.
Perfect. You got it.
Now,
beautiful.
Man, that's the best way.
Schofield, remember that. So Michael is running. First of all, let me say this is a well-qualified candidate, guys. He has a law degree. He is an excellent lawyer, an excellent attorney. He actually worked for Governor Rick Perry. I don't know if I would say you were legal counsel for the governor. I mean, you were on legislation that was written. You advised the governor whether this would potentially be constitutional or unconstitutional, whether the governor should consider signing it in the event the bill came up, or if you saw problems with the bill, you advised the governor, hey, this is not a good deal. But you always have been looking out for Texans. And then you got elected to House District 132 in 2016?
2014.
2014. So you were a state rep. And then, unfortunately, you got swept out in 2018, like Chris Daniel, myself, and all the good guys, basically. So you're back. And I like that. You're like the Astros. You never give up.
That's exactly right. We lost by, and this is how important every vote is. Last time we lost by 0.2% of the vote. 113 votes out of 67,000.
Wow.
And so that tells you how important it is to vote. You think, well, the line's long, I'm not going to go. At the end of the day, you and a couple of your friends can make a difference in some of these races. And my race was a landslide compared to some. I think Dwayne Bohack won his seat by 64 votes.
Yep.
64 votes.
That means every vote counts.
Every vote counts.
He reminds me in 1995 when I ran for city council before you were born.
Yeah, right.
Because you're a young whippersnapper.
Well, you and I, we met in 2000, and I was already 25.
You were a baby.
I was 25.
You were a baby. So before you were paying attention in 1995, I won by 114 votes, became the first immigrant ever elected citywide by 114 votes. That's how important voting is. And so Michael's is telling us he lost by 113. Let's make sure he wins by, at least 1,113 votes this time.
And you pointed out earlier the great start that we've had, record voting so far. Don't be intimidated if you saw long lines yesterday. I refer to those folks as Sooners, people that as soon as the polls are open want to be out there. But we were out there again this morning, and the lines are much shorter. We have 3 weeks of early voting. It's been spread out so that for COVID reasons and to make sure that people don't have to stand in long lines with people. And so there is plenty of space today for you to go vote. There will be throughout the next 3 weeks between now and October 30th. And the one thing that we always tell you is make a plan to vote. I've heard a lot of people intend to vote, they mean to, and then other things come up, or they think they'll wait to the last day and then they get called into work or they're sick. Make a plan and it can be, okay, I'm going to go get groceries on Thursday. On the way to the grocery store, I'll stop off and vote. But just so you know when you're going to go. And that way you'll make sure that you have your vote and it counts. Because the last thing you want is for your candidate to lose in a close race and you didn't get a chance to have your say.
And Mike, Latinos, we love party, we love get together, we love family. So I always tell my friends, Latinos, lleven amigos, take your friends, your neighbors, make a party. I have a friend here that she's behind.
Make a party.
Make a party. I have a friend here that she is behind the scenes.
She means have a party.
Have a party. Make a party, no?
No, they say that in Louisiana.
Make party.
Oh, you see?
Oh, really?
You see? Okay.
Right.
Well, they're our neighbors.
They also say making groceries.
They're our neighbors.
She's bilingual. She's speaking Cajun.
That's
She speaks Cajun, Spanish, and English.
Let's get together. So here's what I did 2 years ago when you were running for a position and Chris Daniels too. So I took my friend Cindy Garza, which is she's a former reporter in Channel 2, and now she's here with us in the room. And I was like, you know what? Let's do this. Let's go together. We go and vote, and then we go to walk to the park. So make it something fun. Take your friends. Make something out of that. Get together. Especially these days that for social distancing, for many months we didn't see each other. So this is the time that we need to get together for a big cause.
One of the things that I always tell my Tejano friends, and I know you know about this, and so do you, Andrea. Tejanos will prepare for weeks to tailgate at the Texans game. I mean, for weeks. I mean, they have the beer, and they have la carnitas, and they have their tortillas, and they have their venison, and they have their tents, and they have their music, and they have their TVs, and they have their RVs. I mean, months of planning goes into a tailgate party. Come on, guys. You guys are telling me you can't plan 5 minutes of your day to go out and vote. It's important that the conservative Latino vote be heard. And God knows there's plenty of conservative Latinos from every corner of the globe in House District 132. I know that out in the Katy area, what do they call it? It's not Venezuela.
No,
Katiesuela?
Katiesuela. You know that you have a lot of Venezuelans or Colombians over there. And a lot of, have you ever been in a Colombian or Venezuelan restaurant over there in Katy?
Yeah, well, yes, absolutely.
Okay, because if you haven't been, we need to
go
and try the food.
Yeah,
if any Venezuelan,
she's gonna make you eat arepas.
Oh yeah, if any Venezuelan are watching us right now, or Colombians, because we have a big audience, Venezuelans or Colombians are watching us right now, and if you know anybody that has a restaurant over there in Katy, well, host a party.
Absolutely.
For Mike.
Host a tailgate party in your driveway.
Comiendo arepas.
So your neighbors can, eat arepas and then get to know the state representative.
You never eat arepas before?
Yes, absolutely.
Arepa, empanadas?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you see?
Yeah.
With him.
That's it?
And then if you go down Highway 6 a little bit, you go to a Cuban restaurant, you can get Cuban sandwiches, y también empanadas, y pastelitos, and flan,
pequeños,
and Cuban coffee. And then if I show up, I'll bring hand-rolled Cuban cigars.
It's not such a thing as Cuban coffee, you said the other day.
I know. I used to tell my mother that. But we'll celebrate smoked Cuban cigars. But listen, let's get back to on target here. There are some serious issues facing the state of Texas, right? And there's serious issues in your district. Talk to us a little bit about, you've been block walking a lot, Michael. And what are your constituents telling you? What are they concerned about?
Well, my constituents are largely people who have moved out to our area from Houston and from other places to get a better life, to get a yard, to get a place where their kids can go to a good school. And nobody wants to go out there and make a life for yourself and then have it taken away. And so the things that my neighbors are concerned with, when they hear people talking about defunding the police, they say, I did not move out here to move into an unsafe neighborhood. I want my constable, I want my sheriff to come out and protect us and patrol the area. When we talk about property taxes, you pay them a lot of money for a house, and then you get a big bill every year that you can't afford. And it's not up to government. It's not government's job to tax you out of your home. And so those kind of concerns are what people who moved out for the school districts, who moved out for a better way of life, now they find themselves with a bill that they can't afford because government's growing too big. The other issue that we have out there is flooding.
Big time.
You know, way back before any of us were born in the 1940s, there was a plan for flood control for Houston after downtown Houston had flooded, and it included the 2 reservoirs that we have, but it also included a 3rd reservoir north of Katy that never got built.
Oh.
And when Harvey came, we found out why we needed it. All that water that flowed through our neighborhoods could have been held up if that reservoir that was supposed to be built in the first place had been built. And so I was working with Congressman McCall on trying to get that done when the election intervened.
And explain to our viewers that may be watching in House District 32 and all over Houston, quite frankly, and all over the state of Texas. We even have people in Pennsylvania watching us. So as those of you that are watching outside of Texas know that Houston was devastated by a massive flood. I mean, it was national news, right? And so what happened is that, you know, we don't have enough detention, retention. We don't have enough storm sewers. We're already, because we pumped water from underground, Houston for a while was subsiding. It was sinking. And so on top of that, we've laid a bunch of concrete. And as Michael says, in the 1940s, we had a plan, but in the 1940s, Houston had a population of probably a couple 100,000. Now the metro area has, you know, probably close to 9 million. So explain
Well,
this.
and as I point out to people that live in our
And
area,
also tell them why working with the federal government is important.
it's important largely because they have the money.
Exactly.
And they also have the Army Corps of Engineers who build these. And the Corps didn't like the idea too much, but they're the Army. And as I pointed out, eventually we do take orders. So it's important to get your congressman on board so that they can make the Army Corps of Engineers do what they need to do to keep us dry. The interesting thing about our area out in Katy and Cypress is that when original plans were made, there were none of our houses there. I live in one of the older houses in the Katy area, but mine was built in 1974, and that's considered old out there. But none of those houses were there. What was there was prairie and all this water flowing towards Houston.
Wow.
And that's why the 2 reservoirs we have were built. They were built not to protect my neighbors, because my neighbors weren't there yet. They were built to protect downtown Houston and the Memorial area and all that from flooding by having Buffalo Bayou overflow. So these 2 reservoirs are supposed to hold the water for even weeks if necessary, till it was safe to let a little bit at a time come down the bayou and eventually go out into the Gulf. Well, this 3rd reservoir was designed to hold water even from getting to those 2 reservoirs. Right. Well, guess where it goes between that 3rd reservoir and the 2 reservoirs that we have? Through all of our neighborhoods in Katy. Now that we have houses there, it's more important than ever that we have a 3rd reservoir to hold back the water so that we don't end up getting inundated. And there are a lot of people who are concerned about, and rightly so, about the environment and the Katy prairie grasses that would get inundated with water. I am more concerned that we don't inundate your living room with water than the Katy prairie grasses. We will find a way to replant the grass, but it's very hard to go replant all the memories of everything you lose when your house floods.
Yeah, and Michael brings up an interesting point, because, you know, I would argue happens with respect to flooding of Houston. We've got to make sure that these detention and retention and you know, drainage systems are working to make sure that we don't experience what we've experienced before. And I think it's absolutely critical that and as Michael says, we can't tax our citizens in Harris County enough to dredge, to expand, to build and improve the detention and retention facilities. So we do have to work with the Army Corps of Engineers. We have to work with our U.S. Senator and all of our congressmen, not just Michael McCall, but all of
Absolutely.
our congressmen. So that's why it's extremely important. What other issue now? Now we talked about flooding and of course taxes, which continue to go up every year. One of the interesting things we heard here locally from the more liberal members of the commissioner's court was that they want to create a corporation to pick off all the profits that the Harris County Toll Road are making. I'm wondering, you as a member of the former member and an attorney of the legislature, what do you tell? Because I know that a lot of your constituents are customers of the Toll Road Authority. They're paying a lot of money every month, and every year, Michael, they're spending thousands of dollars in the Harris County Toll Road Authority. And now the county fathers and moms are telling us we're going to create a corporation to scrape off millions of toll road dollars and use them for God knows what, give them to a corporation. What are your thoughts?
Well, the first thing you should require from your government before anything else is that it doesn't lie to you. When your government tells you we're going to pass a toll road so that you can pay for the road and the money you give will be spent on maintaining the road and building more of the toll road so that you can get around, and then they take the money and use it for some other purpose, you've been lied to. And not only has your government been dishonest with you, but then they've taken the money that you need for the very thing you were promised, and it's gone.
No, and on top of that, they give it to a corporation that's not accountable to the people because they're not elected.
And of course, they don't want it to be accountable to people. They want it to be accountable to them.
Exactly.
And it's not that we see it in the toll road, but we also saw it with the flood control. After Harvey, conservatives, liberals, everybody got together and voted for a $2.1 billion bond for flood control projects. And then this new group of Democrats took over Harris County and they said, well, we're not going to spend it on what we said we were going to when we got you to vote for. We're going to spend it on our socioeconomic deprived, basically on their voters. And you were promised yourself extra to pay for flood control, that's what it would go for. And they took it away. And it's also short-sighted because, as you said, the water that flows through my neighborhoods in Katy and coming to you next. So those of you who live in the Houston area, you know the legislature from the Houston area. You can't do anything unless you have enough votes in the legislature to do it. But I'm able to convince those folks, whether they're Democrat or Republican, whether they're anywhere near Katy, that the water that comes through us is coming to you. And so if you build a reservoir, if you do some of these things that need to be done out in our area, it will protect Houston the way it was originally intended to.
Andrea, I don't want to hog all the time. You have a question for Michael?
He's always like that. It's okay,
No,
man.
I'm being I'm being conscientious.
No, I just saw people that okay, we have somebody from Katy.
All right.
And okay, Larry, we have Larry Smith from Katy. But anyway, I want to encourage people from Katy or from Cypress or from 132 district to ask their questions, because this is the best opportunity. And, I want to know, or I wanted you to tell people how to reach out with you, how to talk to you, because sometimes we think the community that, the politics or people in the government, they're not reachable. And so how do we get involved with them? How do we tell them, this is my need, this is what I want to be done in my neighborhood? So, and that's the most important thing for you, because other than that, how do you know? I mean, the in general and the basic things, of course, but some people has needs that they probably you don't know.
Well, one of the things that I always make sure people know, state representatives are very accessible. People think of them as being somewhere off in Austin, but
you're home most of the time.
We're home most of the time. We're home. We have a 5-month session, then we're home for 17 months.
Thank God.
Yeah. we escape. Everybody's happy to get to Austin to start the session, and then we can't wait for it to be over and get out of there. But one thing I can say, before, when I worked for Governor Perry, before I was ever in the legislature, I would be in a representative's office, and 2 or 3 or 4 people from the district would call on an issue, and out of 200,000, and the representative like, why is everybody in my district excited about this issue? It does not take very many calls or emails to get your representative to take notice. So if you're thinking, oh, what's the point? They're not even going to pay attention. The truth is, your call makes a big difference. And I can tell you, every single person who called or emailed me with an issue got a written letter back on it. So it's not just, oh, it kind of goes into the file and we ignore it. We track down what you were talking about, we find the answer, and we make sure that you get it from us. And that's true of most state representatives. So that is a level of government that you really should be able to reach out to. I'm not in office right now at the moment. You can reach us by email at Mike Schofield for Texas, for spelled out FOR, at gmail.com.
It's on your website, right?
It's on the website. If you go to www.mikeschofield.com, right there, we have all of our contact information, and you can reach us at any time. But also, for a lot of our constituents, they reach me because I knocked on their door.
I know.
And that's and I've been spending the last 2 days at the polling locations, and all I kept hearing all day long was people coming up and going, and of course they're all wearing masks, so I can't tell who they are. And I'll say, "Hi, I'm Mike Schofield." They say, "Oh, I know you came to my door."
Yeah. You know, Michael, a lot of people don't know this, but back in 1992, I ran for House District 132. I was the Republican nominee. House District 132 back then is now House District 134, basically.
Yes.
So the district has shifted
Yeah, they
out to
moved
West
it.
Houston. But that was the district I was nominated for. And the reason I bring that up is because to this day, in House District 132 back then included Meyerland, the Texas Medical Center, Fondren Southwest, and they're in Willow Bend area. And to this day, I go to the Randalls at Willow Belfort and Post Oak, and my sister still lives out there. Do you know people still say, "You knocked on my door when you ran for state rep"? And I tell people that are running for office
Absolutely.
why it's so important not to do slick brochures, slick commercials, radio stations. Of course, it's important to show up here with me and Andrea, right? But talk to people, knock on that door. State rep candidates, any candidate for office, you knock on a constituent's door, believe me, that constituent is saying, it's 90 degrees in Houston, it's 100% humidity, and this man and this woman is knocking on my door asking for my vote. I guarantee you 90% of the time they're going to vote for you.
And any of you who are considering running for office, that is, and it, you don't have to have a lot of money to do it. You don't have to have a lot of a big organization or a lot of support or any of that. All you need is shoe leather and the time to go do it. And Orlando's right. People come years later and say, "Oh, you knocked on my door," or even I had a lady come yesterday and go, "Yeah, my daughter, you knocked on her door."
Wow.
That was 4 years ago. And so people remember that. And so if you're thinking, well, politics is a game that you have to have a lot of money to play and you can't be involved, you can be involved. And you can, even if you're not running for office, if you want to knock on doors for your favorite candidate, somebody that you believe in and care about, you go knock on your neighbors' doors and talk to them. And that is, to this day, the best way to get a vote. You're right. It's not a TV commercial. It's not any of those things. It's talking to people directly.
Connecting with the community. And, kind
of like you and I connected.
Yeah, very good.
I may have to sit between you two and break this up.
Mike, as you pointed out that, you guys are very accessible. Everybody's so excited about presidential election, but this is our house. This is our home. This is our city, and this is our state. And that's why we need to get to know people like you that is representing us here, because as Orlando always said, the chances that you're going to talk to the president is probably zero, but the chances that you're going to talk to somebody like you is like, I never thought that I was going to meet you, and I was going to able to pronounce your last name.
Yeah. You won't see Biden or Trump down your grocery aisle, but you probably will see Schofield or Tony Salas or Chris Daniel, somewhere shopping.
Believe me, I'll be in the Fiesta and people will come up to me for some people are like, I'm not 100% sure that's who it is. Other people just come up and say, and they'll just start right in about the flood problem or the whatever it is. And it's a great thing. It's good to have offices that are closer to your neighborhood because, out where we are in Katy, we have a great county commissioner, but he doesn't live in our area. He has 1.2 million constituents. Huge. The county judge never lives in your area or a congressman, but your state representative does.
Absolutely.
And,
you have to.
And we don't have city council members except in the city of Katy.
Which is small.
I have 10,000 residents in the city of Katy out of the 17,000 they have. 10,000 live in the city. 190,000 of my constituents live in unincorporated Harris County. Right. They don't have a city councilman to go to. They don't have a mayor.
Police department.
They don't have any of that. And so we're who they have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or HFD, an ambulance. I mean, they have, you know, volunteer fire departments generally.
And so, you know, so we're the elected official that they have to talk to.
Right.
And the other thing that's important to know about that is the different elected officials have different jobs. They have different parts of your life that they're responsible for helping out with. And so, you know, the state representatives and the state senators, you know, we're the ones who make sure that your schools are funded and set the rules for your children's education, which is, you know, if you're going to live the American dream, the most important part of it is making sure your children receive a solid education so that they can move up.
And that segues right into an important issue. So, as Andrea knows, I'm famous for saying that the O in my name does not stand for Orlando. It actually stands for opinion. One of the things that conservatives and particularly Republicans are criticized for is that, you know, we don't care about the working class. We care about the rich Wall Street guy. Nothing could be further from the truth. But I think in how we articulate and how we talk, it's important. So talk to us. I know that you agree with this. And by the way, I spend hours when it's not election time talking and waxing eloquently about philosophy and politics and public policy with Michael. So we do this off camera quite a bit. But Michael, I think it's important for conservatives and Republicans to let people know that we want a big middle class. I think that the image of the Republicans and conservatives is that we've abandoned the middle class to hardworking people, and no one is harder working, in my opinion, than a Texan. And among those Texans, I can tell you, Tejanos have the best work ethic of anyone I know. And so we've got to pay attention to the issues of education, their inability to access healthcare. And we got Tony Salas coming up, who's wanting to represent and is going to represent the Pasadena area in the House district. And we're going to talk to him about this. But
And that's a district we've won in the past.
Yes, that's correct. But I heard a statistic, oddly enough, and I'll share this. I'm a bipartisan guy. I mean, I'm a Republican and a conservative, but I have friends that are Democrats, as you do in the House.
Sure I do.
We all have Democrat friends, because once we get elected, once this campaign is over, we've got to figure out how to work together to make your life better, right? And so we can't say, well, I'm a Republican.
It's not about the party anymore.
Exactly.
It's about the people.
It's about the people. So I, am having breakfast with a Democrat county commissioner who tells me there's not a pediatric endocrinologist in my district, and in his precinct. And you know what the number one healthcare issue is in his precinct? Juvenile diabetes, type 2 diabetes. Wow. I mean, my jaw dropped. I said, are you kidding me? So a hardworking mom and dad whose child is fainting and having dizzy spells and is having medical complications doesn't have an endocrinologist they can go to? And it's, so access to healthcare is very important. Is that important in your district?
Oh, absolutely. And so we're having an emerging class of folks who have moved out from Houston, who are getting into their first time having a yard, just started settling to where they are, but they're scrambling. I mean, it's hard to move up the ladder. And we can't afford to have people have a lack of access to healthcare. Now, as it turns out, in my district, we have 3 gigantic hospitals along I-10. So people we have pretty good healthcare in our area.
Do, but if you take I-10 East or 45 or 288 down that area,
when a big part of the issue, whenever every legislative session, everybody wants prestigious things for their district. So you always have people saying, we want a medical school. What we actually need are residency slots that the doctors do after they finish medical school. And the reason is the statistics are overwhelming that wherever a doctor does their residency is where they usually end up living. And that's where they end up practicing. And so one of the, U of H has a brand new new medical school. One of the things that you can try to do is
you played a role in that, didn't you?
Well, I did a small role, but and also I went up and did one of these up in Stephen F. Austin, which is up in rural, the Piney Woods, and they said, how can we get? They have a similar problem on the other side. In the urban areas, you have a problem getting doctors, but also in the very rural areas.
Correct.
And they said, how can we get doctors to come here? And they said, we want a medical school. I said, no, you don't. What you want is to go talk to the people at the University of Houston and see if you can't get a couple residency slots for their graduates. And maybe the folks who are interested in rural Texas will come up and check out your area and like it and maybe marry somebody from the area and want to stay. When it's the same thing with the inner city areas. If we're going to get physicians to stay there, you have to get them to train there.
Look, you got to have healthy families. You've got to have access to health care. It's vital. And here's what I tell my conservative friends, and this is a message that when you get elected again, Michael, share it with your colleagues. It's important that people have access to health care. And so we're accused a lot, Republicans and conservatives, that we don't care. But here's my plea to the Republicans and the conservatives. Why don't we apply conservative principles to problems in the urban area? We're losing urban Texas. Let's not hide from that.
Right.
We've lost legislative seats in Fort Worth, in Dallas, in San Antonio, and in Harris County.
When we do apply conservative solutions to the inner city, the problem is the Democrats fight them because they don't want the voters to be independent. They want them to be reliant on government.
But we need to keep fighting.
And their view,
Articulate that.
their view always is that if we can get you on a government program, then we've done something good for you, and you can see it and you'll vote for us. But the last thing you want is government control of your health care. You want the decisions on how your children are going to have their health care in your hands. You want to be able to decide what doctor you want to go to. Yeah. You don't want the government to dole it.
Like
it sounds good.
Well, like
I don't mean to interrupt here, Michael, but this
yes,
morning,
you do.
I am interrupting. this morning, and I can't remember if it was the Washington Post or the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or Forbes, but there was an article that said that the government is worried about how to distribute the vaccine when it is approved by the FDA. Are you kidding me? You want to distribute the vaccine? Give it to Walmart.
Right.
Don't get government doing it. Oh, my God, that's the problem, right? So, our Democrat friends are looking to government and looking to create more government and to be more dependent on government. No,
to control
that's
more.
not what
That's
we
the
want.
only thing.
We don't want you telling our families how to live. Get out of the way. Just provide a good education, provide good infrastructure, provide good roads, have good healthcare policies, make sure that the middle class is healthy in America, and lower my taxes. That's what you guys in government.
And that's the Texas philosophy. That's why Texas always does better than California and New York.
Right.
We don't have more natural resources than California,
right?
But they have government choking off all the initiative and all the ingenuity. And try to be a small business owner. Try to be somebody who works in a business and decides I'm going to start my own.
Yeah.
Whether it's a restaurant or a bigger company or anything, in California they'll kill you.
Yeah.
They will just put so many regulations and so much taxes and so much, and frankly, they just hate business so much that they will strangle your initiative.
Well, they are.
Here in Texas, you work for a company for a while, you think, I could do this better than my boss does. You start off your own company, and we encourage that and we nourish it.
Yeah.
And how many people I know who started off with nothing but built it. The American dream is now the Texas dream, because in so much of America, we've killed it off.
It's exactly right.
And many people are coming to this state.
Yeah.
Many people.
We held a watch party, a debate watch party, right, the other night.
That we never expect so many people.
A lot of people turned out, but we did it at a place called La Hacienda. It's a Mexican restaurant built by a gentleman from Monterrey, Mexico. He has like 7 restaurants in Houston now. I mean, this is a guy that came with absolutely nothing. And, we're very proud of you. Well, look, we've got to get Tony up here, who's going to be your colleague in the Texas House of Representatives.
I'm looking forward to serving with him.
We appreciate
We'll save him a seat on the floor.
That's right. Don't put him in the back. Give him a good seat. But anyway, Michael, best of luck. I'll give you the last word, 30 seconds. Tell people why they should vote for you.
Orlando, we've been friends for probably 20 years. I've always appreciated the fact that you put yourself out there and you work for the community and try to help other Latinos move up and everybody else move up. And I appreciate it. Thank you for all your help and everything. People, we do need your help. If you want a family-based Texas, if you want a Texas that's based on your individual efforts and your ability to succeed and build your own American dream, we need to continue to be Texas the way it's been and not the way the New York progressives want it. I'm Mike Schofield. I want to be your voice in the Texas legislature, and I sure would appreciate your vote and your help.
Miguel, mil gracias.
And hopefully, November 3rd, we can celebrate with arepas, empanadas,
and a cigar.
Ana Sico.
All right. Well, up next, we're going to have our next state rep candidate, Tony Salas. So, Paula, if you'll, there we go. Paula, by the way, I want to say thank you to Paula, who's our
Producer,
producer.
executive producer.
If she will put Tony's website back up. There you go. But Paula's doing a great job. She's not here. And I tell people all the time how extremely difficult it is to produce these things. We are dependent on cell phones and cameras, and Paula sitting somewhere at a studio somewhere, away from our office. So this is, in my opinion,
And follow us, because
Yeah.
she's following what we're talking, and she's putting on the website, and she's putting in the graphics and everything. And so what we're seeing right now, lo que estamos viendo en este momento es la página de internet de Tony Salas, que lo conocí hace un año. Tuve el placer de conocer a Tony hace un año en un viaje que hicimos, no él y yo, para que no se confundan, en un viaje que hicimos con un grupo de conservadores a Washington, D.C., que estuvo súper interesante. Y estamos viendo la página de internet de Tony, quien es, se está lanzando como candidato para representante estatal del distrito 144. Bienvenido, Tony.
Gracias, muchas gracias por la oportunidad. Thank you for the opportunity. It's an honor to be here. Es un honor estar aquí. Como dicen ellos, I'm running for office for District 144. It's an area that covers South Houston, Pasadena, Deer Park, LaPorte, and Baytown.
Muchos latinos ahí.
A lot. It's like the majority. And I often get asked this question, why did I decide to run? Well, 84% of the families with children under the age of 18 in my area live in poverty. That means that only 16% of families can afford to pay their bills, and those are pre-COVID numbers. Can you imagine now? We have some of the highest underperforming schools in the county, and our crime rates are through the roof. It's not a safe area.
And I don't imagine now with COVID-19 what's been the situation for them.
Really bad. There's an app called the Neighborhood app, and it just breaks my heart to see neighbors talking about how their home being broken into, their cars being broken into. And so the current incumbent is a Latina, but is a Democrat and does not represent the Latinos and the conservative values that are there. So that's why I decided to step in the ring and make a change.
Excellent. Now, look, I tell everybody that, Texas will stay red. Let me repeat that. Texas will stay red because of people like Tony. This is the future of conservatism in Texas. Mexican Americans, immigrant families that have worked hard. And so tell us a little bit about your family background, Tony, before we get into the issues, because it's important that people realize that we are integrated as Texans, as Tejanos. We're part and parcel of this great state. We work together with everybody. So give us a little background.
Sure.
So our viewers will know who you are.
I'm a first generation Texas-born Republican. I came from Mexican immigrant parents that came to this country from Monterrey.
Monterrey. Now you're aware, and I want to make sure, because again, the Democrats will label our party as anti-Latino and anti-immigrant, right? So immigrant, child of immigrants. And by the way, we have a wonderful House District candidate, Luisa del Rosal, in Dallas, Texas, that is born in Mexico. I was born in Cuba. What other country in the world can a young lady born in Mexico and a young man born in Havana, Cuba, and a young lady born in Colombia be involved in the day-to-day operations in government America, right?
Not even in our own country. Not even in our own country. And that's one of the reasons I left my country, because of the better opportunities. I saw better opportunities in this country, and I saw that I can achieve my dreams and my goals that faster than in my country. For sure. I don't know for sure, but I don't think in your district.
So Tony, I'm sorry, I had to jump in. But okay, so mom and dad from Monterrey, Nuevo León, Mexico.
I was born in Far, Texas, which is an area near to McAllen, Texas.
Far.
Yes. Spelled P-H-A-R-R. I was born in Far Hospital. We came to Houston when I was 5 for the better life. And my first job was helping my father run his car wash business and my mother run her daycare business. So that's where I learned what they call sweat equity. And not the one you see at Shark Tank, the real one. You're all sweating bullets in Texas heat, washing cars. And after that, when I got into high school, I decided that I wanted to make money. So I told my mom one day, make me some tacos. I'm going to sell them in the morning. So I sold more breakfast tacos to my classmates.
Wow.
When I left high school, I decided to use my entrepreneurial background to get in business to business corporate sales. I was the youngest man in the office doing multi-million-dollar contracts. And so I did that for many years. Then in my mid-20s, I decided to start a company. I was doing business brokering and management consulting.
Wow.
And it started off really well, but then it didn't go as planned. And so
That's business. That's
you
not
know,
the life of an entrepreneur, right?
I learned that having a company is more than selling, and it's more than telling your employees what to do. It's a 24/7 responsibility.
That's a 24/7.
And so what I do now is I work in the commercial lending space. I serve as vice president of business development for a commercial finance company. And that's my background. So the reason that I got into politics is because I got in trouble for two things growing up. I talked about politics and religion. In the table, I was a 10-year-old talking about it, and my father was like, "Boy, don't you talk about that." And boo, 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 here you.
Tony,
here
when I
now.
met you last year, you were already thinking to run for an office?
Yes, we were already planning it out.
Because we went to a trip with a group of conservatives to with Artemio Muñiz.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was leading the.
By the way, Temio lost his dad, so condolences
Yes.
Yeah.
to our dear friend Temio.
So Artemio, we've been friends for many, many years, and he invited us to that trip, and it was, we learned a lot. And that's when I met Tony, but I didn't even know that you were. I know that you have that in you.
Yeah, I have to, I'm very honest. I have to confess, I don't like having people like Tony on the show because, I mean, number one, they're extremely handsome, good looking,
Oh,
Thank you.
full head of hair, young,
Yes.
vibrant. It makes me feel really old. But no,
and he said it on the email. He said it on the email.
I'm really proud of this guy. He is. I went out and spent a day with him out in Pasadena block walking. I actually hit 84 houses. Me and another young man, we block walked for Tony. And he's got a tough race. These races are not easy. He's sacrificed a lot. But let me just tell you, he is spreading the message that resonates with even immigrants and recent children of immigrants, and that's good for the party. That's good for conservatism. That's why I think that conservatism is in great shape in the state of Texas, because it's this generation that's going to lead us into the future, that's going to keep Texas the envy of the world when it comes to economy, and he's going to keep people moving here. We welcome everybody, people from New York. Actually, Tony, there was an article in Forbes earlier in the week, and you'd appreciate this because you're in lending, but it talks about the impacts of COVID has had in areas like New England, like Connecticut, New Jersey, New York, and even in California, the depletion of the population moving into southwestern states, meaning Nevada, New Mexico, Arizona, and Texas, and Florida. And so it's like Schofield said, it's the liberal policies, it's the high taxes, it's big government telling us what to do. So we're delighted that you're in this. And let me go back to an issue I think is very important, and I want to hear what your thoughts are. Healthcare, access to healthcare. Tell us about your district. Tell us about what's the availability of healthcare in your state houses.
Yeah, so I think the majority of the people that live in my district are blue collar people. Okay, most of them work in oil and gas and refineries in the area, and I would say that the majority of them want to make their own choice on who their healthcare provider is. Being that the majority of them are Latinos, they're not really looking for handouts. They're looking for opportunities, and so I would say to answer that question is they're not looking for a government-backed healthcare as what the media is saying that's what Latinos or minorities want. They want an opportunity just like any other American.
Talking about the media, it's very interesting because we always bring that topic. Being a Latino, like you are a Latino, and you are bilingual. I don't know if the media, the Spanish media in a specific, they're bringing you to interviewing you, to give you the opportunity as a Latino, profiling you, to give you, to highlight that we are.
What? Profile a conservative on Hispanic media?
I'm asking him.
Yeah.
And what is the biggest challenge you've been facing, especially, being Latino, being a conservative, and trying to, to be the voice for the community, and with the Spanish media? What is your biggest challenge?
So we've done multiple press releases, and actually there's a new opinion editorial that I just did on the Houston Current. I don't know if you've heard of that blog, but we've reached out to Univision and Telemundo and gave them a press release about me, but we haven't heard anything in response. And
you all,
you know, and it really just breaks my heart, because it's more than just about Democrat or Republican. Is we need to help la raza, the people, and we need to give them options.
Of
okay?
course.
And you know, the area that I'm serving is mainly Latinos.
Yeah.
It's the heart and the center of it.
shame
And
on,
you are a Latina.
you know, shame on the Latino media that gets a license from the Federal Communications Commission and does not cover local politics to inform the community about what's going on.
And I'm 30 years old.
You're an old goat.
30 years, Latino, Texas born. What else do you want? And but you know the
And
thing,
bilingual.
you know, and but it's an honor to have. We're getting just a record number of support on our social media.
Well, that's right, and this is
Thank God for social media.
Thank God for
Sometimes
social media.
we need to.
you know, and that's exactly why the media is in the position it's in today. I mean, they're fighting for ratings because at the end of the day, they got to sell commercials. And so the news, and this is again my opinion, that's what my O stands for in my name, is that they're not providing news. News is who, what, when, why, and where, right? And you make your own decision, right? The 5 W's. But now it's all opinions. It's Wolf Blitzer fighting with Nancy Pelosi. It's, you know, Ted Cruz fighting with Cuomo as they did last week. That's not news. You know, that's cage fighting. I mean, we don't need that. We need our news outlets to go to this district and say to this young man, you're of Mexican-American descent. Your parents are from Monterrey, Mexico. How in the hell did you become a candidate for state representative?
Correct. And be the example. Be the example to another.
Rosal and highlight her as a Mexican-born candidate for state representative in Texas. Are you kidding me? No one's highlighting that. They all think that we, because we're Latinos, we're dependent on government. We want that fat government check. And that's not what we want, right, Tony?
The people in my district would rather work 2 or 3 jobs before they go get some help.
Yeah.
And you know, in my time as a reporter, I always hear, you know, when we going to cover, because we cover you a lot, Orlando, back in the day. They were always say like, okay, if you're gonna interview the candidates of this district, you need to interview the other part, you know, because the FCC, you know. And have you seen that this is the same as before in that case, or you seen that it turns to one side and not having a balance?
Absolutely not. So unfortunately, we live in a very polarized environment and world, especially in the country, and none of them have reached out to me at all. So it's unfortunate. But I think what is not unfortunate is that the people are angry. So like today I was at the polls, I was at the HCC Southeast Campus, and I was talking to voters, and these are I say raza, like these are people that you wouldn't even think they speak English, but they, you know, they do, and they're voters. And I had a hand, like numerous people, like right when I went to introduce myself, they're like, hold on, I'm Republican. Voy a votar por Trump. I was like, wow, I'm your guy.
Look, you know, this is one of the myths that we as Texas Latino conservatives want to bust, that what the media portrays our community to be is not true. I mean, we're not here to take welfare. We're not here to violate the laws of this country. We're here to serve in the military, as I have, and thousands of Tejanos have done. By the way, you know, the largest percentage of people earning medals that matriculate and enroll in the U.S. Armed Forces are Latinos, for God's sake. I mean, you know, and they portray us as people that want government to tell us what to do, how to educate our children, what government school we have to take our children to. We have to pull 5 different permits from 5 different levels of government for our paleteros out on the street, right? And if you want to open up your own plumbing business, you got to jump through all these hoops. That's not what Latinos are about. Listen to Tony. He represents a district that is what percentage Hispanic?
It's over 2/3.
2/3 are Hispanic. And he's telling you the community, I mean, are they Is abortion a big deal? I mean, do these people want to abort their children? Does
So
our
here's-
community
so
want to
here's-
abort our kids?
So here's the interesting part about that. With our outreach efforts, we've been focusing that I'm pro-life, and when they find out that the other Democrat is pro-abortion, pro-death, they're like, what? ¿Qué? Like, ¿cómo es eso? Is I mean, most Latinos are Catholic or Christian evangelicals, and it's very hard in our roots. Like, for instance, like most people
Protect our children.
most people that were born from first generation parents, their parents had a very hard time to raise them because they didn't have money. And they were the typical statistic of people that should have had an abortion.
Exactly.
Okay. So that kind of just speaks volume on how pro-life we are.
And that's what I always tell my community, or our community, in this case is our community. Please do your homework, research. Just don't let the media tell you what to do or just brainwash you. Just read about it. Go to different sources. Just don't just live with what one of the stations give you, you know. And I always tell, for example, my mom, she's not able to vote yet. She has a green card. My daddy is a U.S. citizen, but my mom always watch only Spanish. I said, okay, fine, but don't just live with what the Spanish station's telling you. Just, you know, she has a computer and she knows how to kind of manage the computer. Google it, and they will give you the information in Spanish too. So just get your sources somewhere else, not just the Spanish media, because that's the biggest mistake.
Yeah, and you know, again, we're immigrants to this country. We immigrated legally. I understand illegal immigration. I really do. I've lived in Texas all my life, Tony, and I will admit that people do come here to work to make a better life. It's human
They do.
nature.
Yeah.
Our biggest instinct, Tony, is what? Survival.
Yes.
We will do whatever it takes to feed our families, to make sure that our daughters and our boys have a better future than we have. And people will risk their lives crossing the Chihuahua Desert, the Rio Grande River, to come here and work. Do we have thugs that come over? Do we have pandilleros that come over? Do we have drug dealers and people that engage in sex trafficking coming over? Of course we do.
But they're not
Let's
the
admit
majority.
it. But
They're not the majority.
That's a law enforcement
Yeah.
issue. So again, Tony, I'm going to tell you, when you get elected, use conservative principles to address these problems.
Yes.
We as conservatives have to come up with a solution for the undocumented population
Yes, we
in
do.
the United
Amen.
States. We
Yes, we
cannot
do.
continue to have 20 million undocumented
Amen.
families that have 2 and 3 children. If you multiply 20 million by 2 or 3 children, you know that's now getting into 60 million people, right? They're voting. And so conservatives need to come up with a solution. I
Yes, we
don't
do.
care if the Democrats don't approve it,
Yes.
right? But that's what I'm urging you to do, is lead when you get elected. Tell your colleagues in the Texas House, tell your friends in the U.S. Congress, we need to come up with a solution to the problems that are facing Latino immigrant families.
And
Yes,
it has
we
to be
do.
your generation is the
Yes.
one that
Yeah.
is our future.
Yes.
And the future of our kids. You know, I have a 15 years old, and you are the future of my kids.
Yes.
People like you know, the 30 years old people, and your generation has a big responsibility in this country.
Thank you. I mean, it's an honor, and this job is not for someone to be in a corner office and stay quiet and be like, "Oh, I'm going to keep to myself." No, this is for someone to be the champion, their cheerleader of their district, of their community, and that's what I'm here to do. I'm not here to be a nice guy. I'm not just gonna, go with the flow. My job is to be the champion for the people in my area, and that's what I'm going to do.
All right, Tony.
Well, great. Tony,
talk to your people in English and Spanish.
Give you 30
and
seconds.
encourage
Tell
them.
them what you want to tell them and encourage them to go all the way down the ballot.
Yes. So thank you guys again. My name is Tony Salas. Soy candidato for state representative, Republicano in District 144. Covers South Houston, Pasadena, Deer Park, LaPorte, and Baytown. And it's time. It's time that we come together as a community, make a change, get out to vote, be seen, be heard.
Thank you, Tony. Excellent candidate. He's going to be very successful. We're going to invite him when he comes back as our state representative, and we look forward to it.
Y contigo vamos a comer tacos,
Sí.
porque con Mike vamos a comer arepas y
Arepas.
empanadas, porque está por allá en Cairizuela, y
Yes.
tú contigo unos deliciosos
Y
tacos
yo
para
voy a
celebrar.
traer Cuban sandwiches y los puros.
Amen.
We're
Let's
going to
do it.
smoke cigars, okay?
Let's do it. Let's do tequilita too.
All right.
Tequilita, claro que sí.
All right, guys. Well, look, thank you all for joining us. I know we ran a little over, but we have a lot of people on the ballot. So we want to expose you to as many of our conservative leaders. I think this is the future of Texas. I want you to get to know Tony Salas. He's going to win this election. He is going to be a leader in Texas. And there's a whole bunch of other Tony Salases across the state of Texas. We're going to try to bring them to you every week. Even after the election, we're going to bring some excellent candidates. We have somebody that Andrea or somebody brought to my attention last night, a young Hispanic, looks like Mexican-American young lady from the University of Texas in San Antonio.
Oh, yeah.
Has made up quite a stir up on the steps
I already reached out to her.
of the Supreme Court arguing for the unborn. And so we hope to have her on the program after the election. We're going to expose you to great Latino conservative leaders. So stay tuned. We'll see you next week. Andrea, you get the last word.
Y les recuerdo que ayer comenzaron las votaciones anticipadas, ayer octubre 13 y va hasta octubre 30 para que usted tenga la oportunidad de salir a votar. No hay excusa, son 3 semanas. Además, hay 4 polls que abren las 24 horas del día. No hay excusa que COVID-19, que no tengo tiempo, que tengo que trabajar, que los niños. No hay excusa. Vamos a salir a votar porque es la única forma que nuestra voz puede ser escuchada. Nos vemos el próximo miércoles con más candidatos y estamos a la vuelta de la esquina con estas elecciones. Recuerde que las elecciones presidenciales son muy importantes, pero hay muchísimos candidatos que están aquí en casa y son por los que tenemos que salir a votar y para que nos representen en nuestra familia, nuestra casa y nuestro
¿Y
trabajo.
tú sabes lo que me gusta decir?
¿Qué?
Que el basurero es más importante que el presidente.
Oh, total.
Yes.
Hasta la semana que viene.
Nos vemos
Bye,
pronto.
guys.
Chao, chao.